Hi, Shawn. It's great to join you today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Hey, I'm excited to have this conversation with you. It takes me back actually to a time when I first met you. I had just come into the nonprofit space. I was trying to understand like how do we serve and support educators and communities in meaningful ways, and connecting with you and your team at Throughline is just I just remember it being a true inspiration. And so I'm grateful to be here with you today.
Yeah, no, it's been a long journey together, Virgil. It's exciting to get to chat.
So tell me about Throughline. What's going on? What are the opportunities that you're addressing? Would love to learn more.
Well, Virgil, it's a wacky time out there. Our leaders are, holding on for dear life as, kind of waiting to get information every day. Things are changing for them within the education space. And, we're meant to be a true partner to districts, helping figure out what are the ways that we could improve the student experience. Over years, we've managed a lot of different change efforts in partnership with schools and districts. And as the times have kind of become a little bit more uncertain, it's really pushed me to get out there and talk more to district leaders. And so the work that I've been doing since January has really been trying to host 100 district conversations where I'm reaching out, I'm talking to different district leaders across the district cabinet, mostly superintendents, but a lot of curriculum directors as well. And my main question is, within all of this uncertainty, when you've lost your ESSER funding and your dollars are uncertain in terms of where title money is going next, and you're really still trying to figure out exactly how am I going to cover my budget while I'm also laying off. There's so many things that our leaders are dealing with right now. How are you still going to maintain high quality, strong professional learning that supports the teachers, the staff who are still remain? And that's really been the question. And I've been asking a lot of different folks that question from all over the country, and I've been getting some pretty incredible answers. The biggest themes that seem to be emerging is that while, partners are incredible, folks like us who support in terms of like research or bringing best practices to the table, really what teachers want is to learn from each other and to be able to share their expertise internally. And the district leaders that are able to create systems and internal processes for moving that information and really elevating teacher leaders into positions where they can either be mentors to new teachers or support teachers through professional learning or facilitation of their PLCs internally. That's really where folks are kind of headed. It's not new. It's just, I think without all of the extra funding in the system, it's tough to make deeper partnerships where you're relying on external providers to do that professional learning. And so what we've been trying to figure out is, okay, so how do we support these new efforts? How do we fit into this? And honestly, the answer we've come back to is to return to our roots. And recently, actually just this week, we launched our Fuse AI Fellowship, which is based off of our Fuse Fellowship that we did from the years of 2013 to 2020, which was mostly to support the onset of one-to-one computing and blended learning, which at the time was really accelerating quite fast. What we learned during that period of time was enormous. Supporting schools and districts as they were trying to figure out how to keep students safe, protect data privacy, make the classroom's usage of the technology more meaningful. What we learned is that there are a lot of different strategies, mostly around change and how you manage change, that can be really helpful in that situation. And so we actually, in 2018, myself and my colleague, Kathy Sanford, we released a book called Pathways to Personalization. Now, that book was out for about a year before COVID hit. And once COVID hit, really, there was so much change that it really wasn't about managing change. It was about staying above water. And so the book kind of went on the shelf, and we haven't really been able to figure out exactly what the re-entry point for that is. However, as we have been watching AI and its onset within schools and the ways in which it is also now forcing so many folks to think about change differently, and as our organization is so deeply rooted within change for the sake of community and for families and for students and that experience, what we wanted to figure out is how could we use our roots of the fellowship model, our learning from the blended and learning era, and our desire to support students, families, communities, and to work with teachers and staff within schools to bring about change that is meaningful, transformative, and ultimately brings the student experience to a place where there's better outcomes, deeper engagement, and ultimately, man, we want to see some joy in classrooms. And that's really where we think, we have a long way to go. It's a rough time right now, but honestly, the way the Fuse Fellowship worked the first time, when you're managing change and it's early days of change, you really want to think about it through the lens of it's an innovation that needs to be adopted or figured out. And so there are models for that exist, within the technology space outside of education, right? Think about Everett Rogers' adoption curve, Jeffrey Moore's chasm. These concepts of innovators and early adopters being the first people that show up at the Apple store, grab that iPhone before anybody else does. That's an example of how this works with a technology product in regular markets, but in education, we have similar situations. Everybody that is in a district probably knows that person that's already off and running with AI. Hopefully, they're also being safe and cautious and with student privacy, and they're not using it with students that are under the age of 13. Maybe they're not even using it with students at all. Maybe they're just doing it on their families at home. Like a lot of times, that's where innovators, I'm one of them, start, right? You experiment and tinker with your family at home. But those folks really have a lot of power and potential for bringing about change. Now, you can't rely on them, as the way of actually, managing them the same way you're going to manage the rest of your staff across a large district. The folks on the other side of that chasm who are not innovators and early adopters, they need a lot of convincing that this is actually better for students and better for their classrooms if they're going to get on board and join. And so what we do in our fellowship is we actually bring those early adopters to the table. We help them understand change, and we help them think about ways that they can help support their team by crossing that chasm with ideas and data and research and really visual examples, classrooms. We used to have a lighthouse classroom model where we would bring people into classrooms where we felt like you could really see the thing happening. And I think that's where we need to head again with AI. And I think the other piece we learned early on is that those early adopters are kind of able to be like canaries in a coal mine in some way for district leaders. So as district leaders are building their policies and they're thinking about, well, what's the guidance I need to be able to actually translate this policy back to each of my different teacher groups based off whatever amounts of support they need? That's really where an early adopter educator in a classroom who's running pilots, who's doing prototypes, who's using action research to determine what is and isn't working become really powerful. And so right now, what we're doing is we're starting in Rhode Island because that's where the original fellowship started. And we're putting together 13 to 15 LEAs, districts and charters, for the first Fuse model here in the state. But we're also looking for 3 sites nationally where we can bring this fellowship model to them. And then once we establish this fellowship model in 3 other sites with between 5 and 20 LEAs, then we're going to network all of these sites together so that we have a massive number of these early adopter educators, leaders, teachers in classrooms who are all working toward the similar pieces. They're establishing guidance that supports policy at their local context. We're training them in a really incredible curriculum that my colleague Malika Ali, who I know you know very well, Virgil, has been building and putting together. We're partnered with a platform called PlayLab, and I'm sure our folks listening know about PlayLab, but if you don't, you need to check it out, playlab.ai. It's an incredible platform for AI because it allows you to actually build your own bots. It's not about consuming other people's AI, it's about building your own. And so we're helping to actually use the Fuse Fellows, these early adopters, to think about district problems of practice and then build AI bots or apps. Many of them already exist within the PlayLab platform, and you just remix them to make them more localized for your context. But specific problems of practice, what can we solve? What can we go after with respect to this new tool and resource we have? We think our early adopters, our Fuse AI fellows, they're the ones to get the job done. And so that's really the push we're making. And if anyone's interested, it's throughlinelearning.org, and you can see the Fuse AI fellowship piece right there on the homepage.
Love that. There's so much incredible work you're leaning into. And if I'm thinking about the next few months, and Throughline's impact, like what's the goal? What's the focus? What's the priority that you're pursuing here in the next 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, great call. So, I think number one priority right now is we are trying to get these fellowships launched and started, get the curriculum to the place where we know it's right, but we're always in continuous improvement mode. So we're also going to be using the summer to really explore what are the other options and opportunities within the fellowship to make it even better. But I think also there's 2 other pieces. I want to continue these district conversations. We just hit number 50. I think there's so much more to learn. Yeah, thank you. But a long way still to go. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations, but we're also going to be pulling out a lot of the themes that we're hearing. And we're probably going to be spinning up some white papers that kind of dig a little bit deeper into some of those themes. We really think that there's a lot there for folks like us who are in spaces where we are meant to serve districts and charters. Well, we need to learn these lessons. We need to read these, incredible learnings and knowledge that these leaders are sharing with me. I'm trying to get it down as fast as I can, but I need to condense it and consolidate it and be able to share it back with the community. And then lastly, what we've been working on for the last couple of years, we're a part of a research partnership called Ripple. And Ripple is the research partnership for professional learning. And 2 years ago, we got a grant from Ripple to test our instructional pedagogy model. It's called CRISP, and it was also developed by our Chief Innovation Officer, Malika Ali. Malika has been running basically PLCs around the 12 research-backed practices and doing a study with AIR to see what the results are. We just got back our first data, and it's incredible. And Malika is continuing to look for sites out there that are interested in going into a year 2 for the research study. What's cool is the actual coaching and training that Malika does and our team does is free. And we just are able to collect the data and understand really what is the impact of the CRISP framework when we're using it with fidelity in schools with teachers. So it's an incredible opportunity too if folks are interested in NRCT.
All of this really great opportunities to learn and dig in collaboratively with educators is incredible. Kudos to you all. Again, this continues to be what I've known of you and your team at Throughline since we met, geez, I think that was 10 years ago or so. So
yes.
really awesome to see it blossom under your leadership. And at Aurora, we believe deeply in personalized and competency-based learning. I know that also is a focus for you and thinking about personalized pathways, but really as Throughline continues to evolve and in supporting those innovators, those folks that are willing to lean in and be those early adopters and be the shining light for others. How does personalization or competency fit in?
I think it fits in everywhere. I've also been hearing this a lot in the 100 district conversations. What we do with adults is what we are ultimately they're going to understand more deeply to be able to do with students. And so I think a lot of the places where we as an organization are seeing personalized and competency ed is when we're working with districts. How are we thinking about personalization for them in terms of what are your specific problems of practice that we're trying to solve here? As we're working with teachers and thinking about what are the specific competencies that are necessary. One of the projects that we've launched in the Bronx in partnership with 2 incredible organizations, one called CEI and led by Dr. Misha Porter, who's just an incredible leader, and another called New Settlement, which is a community-based organization in the Bronx, and a leader of their parent action committee called Chauncey Young. The 3 of us have been kind of working over the last almost 3 years now to put together a community educator tutoring model that leads to a pathway to teacher certification in the Bronx. The Bronx has a very low teacher fulfillment rate, and they have a lot of teacher turnover, and folks don't really stick around as teachers in the Bronx. And so building a homegrown base of talent there is incredible. Now, oftentimes folks don't think about the people that are most proximate to schools. If they're under accredited, if they don't necessarily have enough schooling in college to be able to hit that bachelor's degree or get that certification, then we don't think about them as academic supports for our students. And I think that's really at the core of competency education is when you don't think about and understand that there are actual skills that individuals have mastered that maybe you don't have the ability to actually measure. It doesn't mean those skills aren't valuable, and it doesn't mean that those folks aren't incredibly talented. And so by thinking through what are the ways that we could actually set up structures and scaffolds and supports to both train individuals who are already bringing incredible funds of knowledge from the community into the schools, which is a huge bonus for the schools, but then also create a situation where the academic content that, is a little bit harder to learn in terms of how to teach can be offset by really high quality scripted curriculum or education technology that the students can work with. But oftentimes when our students do that independently or just with an AI bot, they don't really persevere. They don't push through the challenge. They don't struggle through that. And where we see is that when we bring community educators to the table, they're able to build those relationships. They're able to get students to like run through a brick wall to go at that academic content. And so I think what we're thinking about is in terms of like, what are the competencies and how do we measure them? And that works for portraits of a graduate at the high school and middle school and elementary levels. And it works across a strategic plan. Like, what are we trying to accomplish? And what are the skills and strategies that we need to get there? And how are we actually measuring it? Those are the things that we really need to be thinking about. And those are the problems that we're going to be tackling within the Fuse AI Fellowship as well.
I love all of that. One piece that stood out for me that you just brought up is the idea of community educators, and a piece where we can start to think more boldly about like, how can learning transcend school walls? How is it done in partnership with community? And a piece that it reminds me of are those OGs we used to walk by, and they would just drop these pearls of wisdom from time to time. And now if we can actually structure it and systematize it to really engage and lean into that community wisdom and those experiences to help serve kids and also be partners in learning with schools and school systems. Just incredible, really
Yeah.
inspiring. Hey, Shawn, where can we learn more about Throughline, about you and your team's work? Where can we find you all?
Yeah, I mean, the easiest way is our website, throughlinelearning.org. I also am pretty active on LinkedIn. All the 100 district conversations I've been posting on my own personal LinkedIn page, but we also have them at the bottom of the website now as well, if you're interested in looking through the first 50. But yeah, I love to connect. I love to engage. So please reach out, say hello. And if you're interested in the fellowship, let's talk.
Beautiful. Shawn, thank you for your leadership, for your purpose, for your wisdom. Grateful to
Thank
be.
you, Virgil. I mean, for uplifting the work we're doing in the field. Aurora has always been such an incredible partner for us. And so we truly are grateful at the ways in which you both set the tone around research and really, are out there looking for the newest and greatest things that are out there, but also bringing us along and uplifting the things that we're doing that you think are valuable. So this is really kind of you, and I appreciate it.
Our commitment is to amplifying really great people, really great work in service of others. So thank you, Shawn. We'll catch Shawn at the symposium also in October. So join us.
Yeah,
And
Malik and I will both be there. Yes.
yes, looking forward to it.